My ex-husband calls me a parasite, but they had no idea my dad would put an end to their games for good. I've decided to leave you. I'm getting a divorce. I'm done living in this house. My husband David looked at me coldly. Make sure to take that parasite with you. David's mother, who had always been hovering around, smiled slightly. Finally, David, we're getting rid of the parasite. I had spent years living with David and his mother, dedicating myself to all the household chores. I did it for the sake of our little family. I thought that if I worked hard enough, I thought that if I showed my dedication, they would appreciate me. But I was wrong. One day while I was cleaning, I overheard a strange conversation between David and his mother. The words I heard left me in complete shock, so I tried to quietly leave the scene. I tripped over a step in the hallway and fell to the floor with a loud thud. David and his mother rushed over, but instead of helping me, they started mocking me. "What are you doing, Emma? It's so clumsy to fall," they said. "In the house," David sneered. "You're only good for housework. At least do it properly." I could feel my face flush with a mix of pain and embarrassment as the mocking laughter of David and his mother echoed in my ears. I'd reached my limit. I looked at both of them and said, "I'm leaving. I've already contacted my father. He'll be here soon to pick me up." David just laughed. "Good timing. I think I'll have a word with your father, too." I'm curious to see what the father of a parasite looks like. David and his mother continued laughing. They had no idea what was coming. Moments later, my father arrived at the door. The laughter stopped abruptly when they saw him. David's face instantly lost all color when he saw my father. "Wait a minute," David said. "Why are you here?" David's mother looked confused. "Why are you so shocked?" David stammered. "Mr. Hansen is a key executive at our company's biggest." I had no idea he was Emma's father. My father didn't waste any time. He looked at David and his mother sternly. "Emma told me everything. You've mistreated her for far too long, and it ends today. Also, I just found out that you, ma'am," he pointed at David's mother, "were responsible for the accident that took my wife's life." David's mother turned pale. She tried to deny it, but my father cut her off. "You never paid. I'm going to make you pay for what you did. I've been patient until now, but after seeing how you treated my daughter, I'm done. You will pay the remaining amount in one lump sum." David and his mother were trembling, but David tried to act tough. "This is just personal. It won't affect my career. We can find new clients and move on." I shook my head, realizing they still hadn't understood the seriousness of their situation. Just then, David's sister Lucy, who had been living with us for a few months, approached me quietly. She handed me a letter and whispered, "Read this later, please." I left with my father and my daughter. After a few months, Lucy approached me. She handed me a letter and whispered, "Read this later, please." I left with my father and my daughter, feeling a mix of sadness and relief. On our way to my father's house, I opened Lucy's letter. The contents shocked me. Lucy explained how she had been mistreated by her mother and David. It was much like what I had been through. She had returned home only because she was forced to. She was planning to leave as soon as her husband, who Thestpreet. When Lucy's husband came back from overseas, she was treated like a servant, just like I had been. I felt for her, but I also felt hopeful because I knew she had a plan to escape. My father reassured me that we'd support Lucy in any way we can. 3 months later, I was living peacefully with my father and CLA when I received a call from David. His voice sounded desperate. "Emma, Lucy is gone. Do you know where she is?" I replied calmly. "She's probably..." David was really panicked. He said, "They needed her back because my mom and I were in trouble without her." I asked why he still had his job. He said that after my dad cut ties with the company, he was demoted, they lost their biggest client, and he hadn't been able to secure any new deals. On top of that, they were struggling financially. I shook my head. I told him that this was all his own doing. "You and your mother need to face the consequences of your actions. You can't always rely on others to fix your problems." David was silent for a moment before he spoke again. His voice was barely a whisper. "Emma, I don't know what to do." I took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions. I remembered all the nights I spent crying. I remembered all the times I felt worthless because of how they treated me. I had to stay strong. "I'm sorry, David. This is something you have to figure out. I'm on my own now." I hung up and blocked his number, feeling like I'd made the right decision. A few weeks later, I got another letter from Lucy. She was smiling in the photo she'd sent. holding her baby. Seeing her happy gave me hope for my own future. I looked at CLA and smiled. We're going to be just fine. From now on, it's just us, and we're going to make a beautiful life. Together, Claire giggled, and in that moment, I knew our future was bright and free from the shadows of the past. My father supported me in every way, encouraging me to find a job and regain my independence. I started working part-time at a local bookstore, and it felt good to be out of the house, meeting new people, and slowly rebuilding my confidence. Claire loved spending time with her grandfather, and seeing her happy made everything worthwhile. One day, while I was organizing books I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering. "Hello, Emma, it was Lucy." Her voice was shaky, but she sounded urgent. "I need your help." My heart skipped a beat. "Lucy, what's going on? Are you okay?" There was a pause before she spoke again. "I managed to get away, but I need a place to stay for a few days. I'm scared they might find me." I didn't need to ask who she was. I replied without hesitation, "Of course, Lucy. Come to my father's house. You'll be safe here." A few hours later, Lucy arrived, looking exhausted but relieved. She hugged me tightly, and I could feel her trembling. "Thank you, Emma. I didn't know where else to go." "You're safe now," I whispered, guiding her inside. My father welcomed her warmly, and we made sure she had everything she needed over the next few days. Lucy opened up about everything she had been through with her mother. David had tried to control her life even after she left. They wanted her to send money to support them, but when she refused, they threatened her. "I couldn't take it anymore," Lucy said, her eyes filling with tears. "I just want to live my life without them hanging over me." I nodded, understanding her pain all too well. "You deserve to be happy, Lucy. We both do. We're going to make sure they can't hurt us anymore, with my father's help." Contacted Lucy, her husband, who was still overseas, was happy to hear from her and said he'd come back as soon as he could to take her away from all this. While he was away, we did everything we could to keep her safe and comfortable. One evening as we were having dinner, the doorbell rang. My father and I exchanged a glance before he got up to answer it. I could hear muffled voices, and then my father called out, "Emma, it's for you." I walked to the door, my heart pounding, standing like his, and there was David. He looked a bit disheveled, his eyes red and tired. "Emma, please?" He started, his voice cracking. "I need to talk to you." "David, I'm sorry you're struggling, but you made your choices. You treated me and Lucy like we were nothing, and now you have to deal with the consequences." David's shoulders slumped, and he nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know I was wrong. I see that now, but I just don't know how to fix it." I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Maybe it's not about fixing it. David, maybe it's about learning from your mistakes. You have to become a better person, but you have to do that on your own. I can't help you." He looked at me for a long moment before finally nodding. "I understand. I'm sorry, Emma, for everything." I watched as he walked away, a sense of finality washing over me. I knew that this chapter of my life was finally over. I could move forward without the weight of the past holding me back. A few weeks later, Lucy's husband returned, and they left together to start a new life before she left. Lucy gave me a big hug and thanked me for everything I'd done to give her hope. I was really moved and started to cry. She said I deserved to be happy. Lucy went off to live her life, and I watched them drive away. I felt a sense of peace. I'd faced my past, stood up to those who'd hurt me, and come out stronger on the other side. Now it was time to focus on my future and build a life for myself and Claire. One sunny afternoon, as CLA and I played in the garden, she looked up at me with her big, bright eyes and asked, "Mommy, are we happy now?" I smiled and pulled her into a hug. "Yes, sweetheart," I replied. "We're very happy, and we're going to stay that way. The past is behind us, and the future is ours to create. No more shadows, no more fear. Just the promise of a new beginning filled with hope and love." And that was more than enough for me.